No matter where you look, Isekai is everywhere, whether you love it or hate it. Sometimes I wish a truck yeeted me from existence just so I don't have to be exposed to yet another turd-level gimmick turned into the laziest excuse for a plot possible. Yes, I am no means the greatest fan of Isekai, but I am aware there are some decent Isekai shows out there. Maybe? But honestly, it just makes me wonder why these cheap cash grab series keep getting anime adaptations. Nah, but seriously, I bet you're curious too how we even got to this point. So let's travel back in time to discover how Japan became obsessed beyond belief with this subgenre that infiltrated every last web novel, light novel, anime, and manga, and why Isekai may be a threat to civilization as a whole. Highly credited anime historians, aka losers like me, often cite the 8th century folktale Urashima Taro as the precursor for all Isekai. A fisherman named Taro saved a turtle from some little shits. Then the deranged turtle abducted Protag Kun, saying, "Oh, we won't be too long," taking him to the Dragon Palace where Taro met his own waifu. Legit, they got married. Except, unlike Isekai protagonists today, he was like, "Nah, screw this, I'm out of here." But upon return to his world, 300 years had passed and he had turned into an old man. The end. Who in the right mind thinks this inspired modern-day Isekai? People actually believe wannabe web novelists in their parents' basement read this old-ass story and thought, "I know, how about I let you stay in the world and get a harem of cute girls instead, and give them a shit ton of OP abilities for no reason." What a brilliant idea! This is exactly the escapist fantasy Japan needs. Nah, but legit, Japan isn't the only country out there that has produced stories which involve traveling to a whole new world. Simply because, for most people, real life is kinda underwhelming. And that's putting it lightly. Listen, I'm not a doomer, but it's undeniable life is tough as hell for a vast majority of people, especially throwing history into the mix. With war, famine, poverty, and diseases out there, who wouldn't want to wish for a new world surrounded by anime titties? That's why fictional stories have mattered to people since the dawn of time, irrespective if they are classed as isekai or not. Imagining a fantasy story promoting themes of heroism or some noble quality which everyone can enjoy acted as a form of escapism. But if you add the secret formula or the concept of the average Joe in town journeying to a fantasy land of wonder, they act as the audience personified, experiencing the new world in the story themselves. Or in other words, a self-insert. If you think about it, even the concept of heaven in world religions could be classed as an isekai. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but let me cook. For the average medieval peasant who lived a pretty terrible life of hard manual labor and no opportunities in life, they found solace from the stained glass windows of the local church, believing through their faith an eternal life of happiness and peace awaited them after death. And maybe an anime girl harem if they were lucky. Why do you think so many isekai protagonists die in real life thanks to Truck-kun in order to be reincarnated into the new world? It's their author's idea of heaven. Okay, this conspiracy theory isn't foolproof, as there are plenty of isekais out there with messed up worlds. Well, maybe they went to hell. Nevertheless, as a general concept, I think it works. Now let's fast forward 2 world wars to modern Japan, where the country had been devastated by a horrendous conflict of earth-shattering proportions. Hope emerged out of the ashes in the form of popular anime and manga, which took Japan and later the entire globe by storm. The first known modern isekai stories to emerge out of Japan, according to this highly credible source. Oh wait, it's wrong? Wikipedia, why do you lie to me? According to my extensive and backbreaking research in the form of a 3-second Google search, the first modern isekai anime was Paul in Fantasyland in 1976, which sounds like a bootleg gender-bent version of Alice in Wonderland. Wait, are you telling me Mushoku Tensei isn't the grandfather of all isekai?
Gonna cry?
There was also 1981 Superbook, which is a Christian anime. No, seriously, it is. I'm not joking. Video games also became mainstream in the 80s, and thus, the ingenious idea to combine this new medium with anime was spawned. Admittedly, while it is easy for us humans from the future to look back in retrospect to uncover the mind-blowing origins of Isekai in Japan, the reality is that there weren't really enough series that followed the same tropes or formula which had that same mass appeal we see in recent years. They were stories that just so happened to have the main character or multiple characters from one world travel to another different from their own. It had not yet become an oversaturated subgenre or even recognized as a subgenre for that matter. Even in the early 21st century, there were only a few, if any, shows which could be classed as isekai, often adapted from light novels or manga. Zero no Tsukaima in 2004 being one example. By the way, if you would like to see me make a video about why the hell idol anime became so popular in the first place, then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. Now, let's talk about what we can describe as the isekai boom. Anime subgenres have existed for a long time, with some like battle shonen and ecchi harems still surviving to this day. And during this time, light novel adaptations started trending, which featured isekai or reverse isekai stories. The latter being where a character from a fantasy setting gets sent to a world not too dissimilar from our own. We went from having a few shows per year, which could arguably be classed as isekai under our 2023 lens, to now more than 20 isekai a year, and God knows how many web novels that haven't even been adapted into anime yet. What I believe truly launched the disease known as isekai into multiplying faster than the bubonic plague was the internet itself. Thanks to the digital world, any idiot could go online and write their own web novel. Fanfiction. Meaning if you were an aspiring Japanese novelist, you no longer needed the traditional route of applying to publishers or entering novel writing competitions to gain recognition and attract a loyal fanbase. And due to some of these web novels becoming so goddamn popular, it wasn't long before they were approached by publishers, giving them their big break, and later adapted into anime. Re:Zero, Mushoku Tensei, Tensora, and many more all followed this route into the mainstream, with lots of new undiscovered talents writing isekai stories online and later getting snapped up and selling thousands, if not millions of novels. What could possibly go wrong? Everyone now is clout chasing for a piece of the new isekai pie, drastically increasing the number of isekai authors. But as original ideas are increasingly scarce in modern light novels and anime, and due to this subgenre becoming competitive as hell, it became easy to pull a ridiculous gimmick out your ass and give it an isekai layer of paint. Original writing. Unless getting reincarnated as a hot spring or a vending machine showcases the genius of modern Japanese writers. Although it can be argued that writing something wholly original is now impossible. Therefore, it's natural to take inspiration from other works. But come on, who the hell is asking for all these generic isekai that either rip each other off or revolve around a stupid gimmick? Because, isn't it quirky that our main protagonist is a sex worker now?
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the is that?
Therefore, the market has now become so oversaturated that it's now a relief when non-isekai get attention. Honestly, it makes you wonder how these series keep getting the green light. And before you get outraged in the comments about how the MILF incest isekai is the magnum opus of 21st century literature, I'm just perplexed by how easy it is to seemingly write a moderately successful isekai nowadays with little thought or effort put into the story, characters, and world. Simply because these series are on a never-ending conveyor belt from online web novels, then the consumers will read them as they are addicted to the formula and are attracted to outlandish and absurd titles because, funny. Therefore, it's a no-brainer for the anime studios to mass-produce isekai to earn easy money, irrespective of the quality of the original stories. But how did the consumers even get hooked to isekai so much to begin with? Well, anime as a whole is simply another form of media which people can enjoy to escape their mediocre lives, just like video games, movies, or whatever. As I mentioned earlier, this has always existed, but now, due to way more shows and forms of media being produced and becoming more popular than ever, it's more relevant than it ever has been. Like it or not, we are all susceptible to this, unless you just hate fun, I guess. Trust me, I waste more time on Smash than I like to admit. But why do you think so many isekai protagonists are neets or hikikomoris? I thought girls hate jobless guys. Neets wish their lives were much more exciting and lack the responsibilities which come with adulthood. Therefore, escaping to another world, just like the main character of an isekai, is their ideal fantasy. I just pray to God they don't take the death in the original world bit to heart, as Japan has already a pretty concerning suicide rate. Even putting shut-ins and hermits aside, working life in Japan does often have a bad reputation, mainly in the big cities, I imagine, as apparently it's surprisingly common for employees being coerced to work overtime constantly and incentivized not to take holidays. Therefore, anime, especially isekai, is a convenient way for them to imagine a more engaging reality. Maybe Sato from Welcome to the NHK was right in saying that TV companies air addictive anime to turn more people into shut-ins as part of a sinister conspiracy. I mean, I wouldn't go far as to say isekai is the root of all evil, or would I? Nah, but seriously, if you enjoyed a casual isekai every now and then, while still having a real life, wishing you were a piece of slime, or having an instant kill ability which invalidates everyone else, more power to you. The problem is, being addicted to them can be hella unhealthy. Not only because you're throwing money to the run-of-the-mill isekai every single season, or book release, you will probably lose touch with reality. But Aeon, Subaru isn't a self-insert because he suffers a gorillion amount of times. Okay, sure. But why do you like ReZero? Let me guess. It's the characters in the world, right? Escapism doesn't necessarily mean the main character has to be relatable, or the one you imagine as yourself, just as long as the world is exciting and interesting enough that it makes you want to watch it rather than looking at paint dry in your house. It's that simple. Or alternatively, you have the isekai dudes who get all the chicks, have all the OP abilities, and dunk on any enemy that opposes them. God, I wish that was me. This causes the problem of people being unsatisfied with themselves in the real world. Therefore, the idea of a power fantasy character is far more appealing. Welcome to the NHK also has a brief video game isekai arc where the main character Sato gets addicted to a game which is totally not World of Warcraft, as it's way more exciting to be a mage with a cute cat e-girl who turns out to be a dude in the virtual world rather than a neck-bearded loser with no job in reality. And this anime was made before the big isekai boom. While it does focus on video games, I think the message it's trying to suggest also applies to the mass consumption of isekai, as they share similar aspects. And video game isekai are very popular. Neglecting your own reality for the sake of something which doesn't and cannot exist is a terrible approach to life. While Sato does escape the virtual world with the help of his friends, there is another character in NHK who does not leave his room and is permanently etched to his screen, playing the hell out of the game non-stop, who Sato does try to help, as he was in a very similar situation himself. I'm not saying that everyone who watches isekai is like this, but due to more and more isekai being produced and its formula for success, it makes you wonder how many people are taking it this far. Sadly, isekai is a subgenre that seems to be going nowhere, and more shows which use the same premise with a weird added gimmick will likely increase in number. I don't think this is a good thing for the industry or consumers, despite anime being more popular now than it's ever been. I think it's because the audience probably prefer to watch simple plots with a concept that is already familiar to them, so they can just enjoy a silly anime without having to overthink. I'm not saying every show needs to be intellectually stimulating. All I want is moderation, and thankfully there are still shows out there which aren't isekai. For now. But as my tinfoil hat theory suggests, isekai will eventually take over the entire industry, indoctrinate our brains, and enslave us to the worlds beyond our own. Let me know if you think isekai has gone too far down below. If you want to see more conspiracy theory related anime videos with a touch of history like this, then click on the videos on screen right now and subscribe so you don't miss a future video.